I seek influence over power.
Andrea, who's says modesty is not a rule that is halakhic. Is that true? Modesty it's definitely halakhic, isn't it?
Modesty is absolutely halakhic.
Yeah.
There's an opinion brought down by the Aruch HaShulchan that standards of modesty depend on the society around you. But he's really a gat yachid in that notion. I mean, that's basically saying that if everyone wore a bikini, then you could wear a bikini in shul. That's
how I hold anyway. But yeah.
That what?
Modesty depends on the, but that's like kind of like a Chabad.
To a certain extent, that means clearly there's no law that a woman has to wear a skirt. Now, if in your society women wear pants and men wear skirts, then that is what a woman should wear because of beged isha versus beged ish, the clothing of a woman versus the clothing of a man. But there are certain things in halakha that go by local standard, and the Rambam mentions a few. Like jewelry on men. It says that that's up to local custom. There's some things that are set in stone, like covering your hair as a woman. The Rambam mentions also wearing a hijab, which he calls the radid, along with the mitpachat. There's actually two laws there. There's a law to cover your head, and then there's a law to cover your hair, which they're not necessarily the same according to the Rambam. There's for sure standards of modesty. I'm not saying that a woman has to wear a skirt. The law is that she shouldn't show the outline of her body. Now, there's some skirts that show the outline a lot more than pants do. So we have to use common sense here. Always.
What about male modesty?
Male modesty.
So male modesty, it's funny, the Rambam brings down, but he brings it down more like midat hasidut, that a man should wear long sleeves as well. He said this was a custom of the sages. He said also of wearing shorts, that he should wear long clothing. On Shabbat, for sure, people shouldn't wear clothing. I mean, it's forbidden to wear clothing with holes in it. Apart from that...
Well, Shabbos should be your best clothes, right? I mean, they say, you know, the best for Shabbos, the best food, the best clothes. That's everything for Shabbos, no?
Right. I don't know, like, if it necessarily has to be your best, but it shouldn't be torn and it shouldn't have holes in it. That's actually what's mentioned. I mean, you shouldn't break the bank just to buy expensive clothing for Shabbat. Although the notion of a chiddur mitzvah is a great thing to do, and to beautify mitzvot. But male modesty is not as set in stone as female modesty.
Long sleeves for men? Because I've seen a lot of that.
It mentions this by the Rambam, but not like a halacha. That he says that it's a good thing to do. It's what people call midas hasidus. Also, head covering for men, the Rambam says that the students of the sages would also wear turbans that would cover their heads. Like the sages did, not that that's a law as well. But for women, it is brought down as a law, to the point that they could lose their ketubah. They could lose what the ketubah entitles them to, which is money, if they go into the courtyard showing their forearms with their head uncovered.
Ooh, very good. That ties into the last week's Torah parsha, where the Sota woman, where the husband tells the wife to stay away from the man because she's a little bit immodest.
So that's an interesting topic, because the Torah, at least according to Rashi, this is where the Torah describes that a woman has to cover her hair. The Mishnah says that a woman has to cover her hair, but it doesn't tell you exactly how it's covered. The rabbis in the Gemara, later rabbis, the Moraim, people who didn't have smicha really, start arguing on what are the do's and don'ts in covering a woman's hair, and that's really what causes all the controversy in the Orthodox world nowadays. So this is why it's good in an area that brings controversy to go back to the Mishnah and to see, like, yes, the Mishnah tells you to cover, but it doesn't necessarily tell you how to cover. And this is what it says. Right. It says that Rav Yishmael says that the commandment to cover is from the Torah, but it's only how you cover that's from the rabbis. Really, the opinion of how someone should cover should end with the closing of the Mishnah and should not include all the disagreements that appear in the Gemara, even though the Gemara endorses the notion that a woman is allowed to wear a wig, because all these people are saying, oh, well, it's immodest, and this. It doesn't say that.
Well, speaking of Rabbi Yoel Reuven, he's a big anti-wig guy, and I do kind of agree with him on that. These wigs that these women wear, especially these Ashke women, it makes them look even more beautiful than what they already are. I mean, they're wearing these beautiful wigs, and I'll be honest with you, I kind of agree with that. It kind of goes against the modesty thing a little bit. The wig.
Well, being unattractive has nothing to do with being modest. And Well, I'll
I
tell
like
you,
that answer.
every woman has a responsibility as a married woman to look beautiful for her husband.
Amen.
This whole notion
Amen.
that she should walk around in Crocs looking all defrontaled is not endorsed by Torah, in my opinion. Silly. It's silly to make a big deal over this. And if you're Lubavitch, don't forget, it's Lubavitcher women who wear the fancy
Wigs,
shades. The fancy shades. I'm not saying wigs in general. They're the ones who wear the fancy shades.
They can go for 5,000. Some of them.
They wear shades that don't look like shades, while the Litvish women will wear a wig that where you see the stitching on purpose. Perhaps you shouldn't identify with Lubavitch if you're going to have that perspective.
Fair enough. Well, we do have a question in the comment section. Our good friend Luis Rodriguez, Rav, he asks, is a married woman allowed to walk outdoors with her head uncovered? What's your take on the belief in the upper worlds? So I guess there's two questions: whether or not a woman can walk outside without her head covered, and your belief in the upper worlds. I guess that's Kabbalah. I don't know.
A woman is not supposed to walk outside with her hair uncovered, whether she's married or she's not married. Now, I live in an Orthodox community. I send my kids to religious school. My daughter goes to Beis Yaakov. I'm not going to send her with a wig or with mitpachat or tichel or whatever. In that perspective, safek dirabanan lehakel. I'm going to do what everyone else does to live a normal life, but I'm not going to deny what the halacha says. I mean, Shulchan Aruch and Even Hazer says the same thing the Rambam says in Hilchot Ishut, what the Talmud says, that an almana, a panuya, a garusha, a widow, a single woman, a married woman, they all have to cover their hair. And it was only, I think later, the Beis Shmuel was of the opinion that it's only married women that have to cover their hair. But people... See, the thing is that we don't hear enough rabbis debate each other, respectfully debate each other, or debate each other at all. But I'm saying if they're going to do it, they should do it respectfully, because that's when you start seeing these distinctions. I would love to see a UFC of religion, put a Yemenite, traditional Yemenite rabbi. I'm not saying like a Sephardi sellout, traditional Baladi Yemenite rabbi against a Spanish Portuguese rabbi, against a Syrian rabbi, against a Hasidic rabbi, just respectfully against. Share their differences, share their sources of inspiration and source material of why they do what they do, instead of just placing themselves and their families in a bubble where they don't have to respond to anyone for their actions.
Yeah.
I think that these conversations are very helpful that we're having today. This is why we have so many people on air, because people aren't scared to ask questions and challenge me and call me an idiot. I'm pretty sure that every other rabbi would block you, right? If you start attacking anything that he doesn't believe in. I'll say, okay, we disagree. Thank God for those who are willing to come on my show and publicly disagree with me, and that's fine, and give their reasons for disagreeing. And this is how you guys learn the best, by seeing contrast. If you follow a rabbi who only has monologues, who is just telling you what he thinks you should believe is important, and if you don't like it, find yourself another rabbi. No, if you're intellectually honest, you're never going to find a rabbi that you agree with 100%. That's a fact, unless you're brainwashed, unless you're looking for a cult leader and not someone to help you progress in a healthy manner. And that's what we're trying to do. So we're not telling you what to think, but we're helping you think in a kosher manner, in a healthy manner, being able to walk into a Satmar shul and say, you know what, these guys have a justification for what they're doing. Not what my rabbi says, that they're all heretics. Oh, you're anti-Israel, you're an idiot. Have you ever taken an anti-Israel rabbi aside and asked them, why are you against the state of Israel? I assure you, he'll give you a valid, sound answer. Now, you're never going to hear that answer if you just write him off. And vice versa. If you take a religious Zionist aside and ask him, why do you believe that God was able to use a bunch of Bolsheviks to create a country, and why are you optimistic that you can make these people religious? He'll give you a good answer too, right? But if you write people off just because you disagree with them and say all their teaching is anti-Torah and the only person who's teaching right Torah is this rabbi, only an idiot talks like that. Only an idiot talks like that, okay? And these rabbis make their students bigger idiots than they are. That's it. I call it like I see it.
Talk about debate. I mean, you were just saying earlier, look, we're open. The link is out there public. There's no excuse for someone to say that they don't like what you're teaching. I get hate mail too, saying, oh, I don't teach short. James was telling me that he was saying that I don't teach Torah. Well, if that's the case, come on the show and correct us. I want to be corrected. I want to grow. Rav, if you make a mistake, I'm sure you want to hear it, right?
Absolutely. And
Absolutely.
I would be fully respectful. If you guys hear my discussions with people, it's never rude. I just want to learn. Now, I am very opinionated. I believe what I believe, and I believe that what's good for me is good for other people, but I'm open to listening to different perspectives. You know, one of my closest friends, like I said, is Rabbi Kalagowski. He's like a Satmar Chassid, and we differ on things, you know, but I love him and he loves me, and we could love each other like Jews. We're both poskening by Chazal. What's the big issue? The bulk of what people disagree on are Chidushim. Most people don't differ on halacha. Like, no one is disagreeing on what's a malacha. Well, I guess they are disagreeing on what's
Well,
malacha.
you wouldn't be able to. I mean, technically speaking, if a person's disagreeing on halacha, you're making yourself known that you're not exactly kosher up on the up, you know.
Right. But some people lump certain things in halacha. You know, the rabbis now came out saying that if you disagree with social distancing in a synagogue, if you're part of some sort of protest breakaway minyan, and then you're committing a Chilul Hashem, and you're I don't know. Of course, you know, because you're going against.
All right. This is the
road.
same people that would have said to the, you know, Judas Maccabee, you know, that he was a desecration to Hashem because he's fighting against them to reestablish the temple. These people don't know what they're talking about.